Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching the Today I Found Out YouTube channel, and in the video today we're looking at Martin Luther's potty mouth. On the last day of October in 1517, a scholar and a priest named Martin Luther did as priests commonly did at the time when they had something to discuss among the clergy. He nailed a piece of paper to the door of the castle church in Wittenburg, Germany. Though Luther has come down through the centuries as a poking the bear sort of rabble-rouser, there is enough evidence to believe that he did not initially intend for his work to be debated widely by the general public. For starters, Luther composed his document in Latin, the language of scholars. Latin was largely unknown to illiterate members of the common folk, and even many members of the aristocracy as well. He pinned it to a church door, which was commonly done by scholars hoping to share their work with other learned men to allow for future thoughtful discussion. But at some point, someone took the document down from the church door and translated Luther's words into German. Thus, in modern terms, he posted some thoughts on a semi-private forum, and his post got leaked and then it went viral. And so it was that, unlike many other such documents nailed to the doors of churches, this one sparked a religious and social revolution and established Luther as a hero to some and the father of the Protestant Reformation. Interestingly, some argue that to solidify his claim to leadership, Luther also felt he had to do something else, and that was talk tough, and in 16th century Germany, that meant having a potty mouth. Regardless of his actual motivations here, it's an unequivocal fact that Luther could turn a filthy phrase with the best of them, as you'll soon see. In her work, German Hercules, The Impact of Scatology on the Image of Martin Luther, Daniel Mead Skelver notes, in Luther's time, vulgarity and scatology, a strong focus on excretory functions and their products, or more simply poop, were a part of sometimes even polite society. In fact, later Mozart wrote some lesser-known music such as Leck mir den Arsch fein recht ston schauber, which means lick me in the arse right well and clean. Sorry about my German pronunciation. Beyond talk, public defecation, while not well received, remained common, and in fact, spreading feces on the doorknob of a foe was not unheard of in this era or region. In that vein, Luther and his allies would use copies of his detractors' pamphlets as their toilet paper and then send them back to the authors. That was in keeping with the practice of German nobility, who sometimes dipped their enemies' coats of arms in excrement and then carried that insult into battle. So during this time, speaking about doo-doo was, according to Mead Skelver, simply a form of tough talk, equivalent to today's locker room bravado. Adherents to this theory point to other German men from the 16th to 18th centuries who are also well known for their scatology, including Johannes Gutenberg and, as previously mentioned, Wolfgang Mozart. With this last, a thorough study was done that showed that in 371 of his letters, 39% had some sort of scatological reference. These included references to buttocks or defecation, 45 letters, shit, 21, and arse, 19, among others. So now the question is, what exactly did Luther say? As an example, in 1542, Luther is reported to have described his depression as such: "I am ripe shit, so is the world a great wide arsehole. Eventually we will part." To say he was preoccupied, well, that would be putting it mildly. In 1531, in discussing an illustrative conversation he had with the devil, which took place on a toilet, Luther said, "I am cleansing my bowels and worshipping God Almighty. You deserve what descends, and God what ascends." So great was his love for pooping that he claimed one of his most significant revelations came while he was on the pot. In attempting to understand Romans chapter 1 verse 17, the realization that salvation came through faith rather than through his effort struck him, and he later claimed, "Here I felt that I was altogether born again and had entered paradise itself through open gates." In his defense, though, the idea of the devil loitering in toilets and it being his playground was a common one. So it does make a weird sort of sense that Luther would, as he put it, chase him, Satan, away with a fart, or write to him, "Dear devil, I have shat in my pants and breeches, hang them on your neck and wipe your mouth with them." More than just bizarre diary entries, though, it has been argued that the devil in these writings often served as a stand-in for many of Luther's enemies, and that Luther's followers were aware of this and applauded him for his bravery and strength. Not everyone was so impressed with Luther's vulgarity, however. The English Catholic Thomas More called Luther a buffoon who will carry nothing in his mouth other than cesspools, sewers, latrines, shit, and dung. But Luther was undeterred, and towards the end of his life penned what was essentially an open letter to Pope Paul III in 1545 called Against the Papacy in Rome, founded by the devil. In this letter, Luther pulled out at all the stops, saving some of the best for last. Luther described the practice of indulgences as an utter shitting, and went on to claim that the dearest little ass Pope not only worshipped Satan, but also licked his behind. Licking butt was sort of that era's equivalent of kissing ass. He also said that the Pope farted so loudly and powerfully that it is a wonder that it did not tear his whole and belly apart. And now for a bonus fact. Luther didn't restrict his very frank and sometimes uncouth talk to scatological references. For instance, one of the many problems he had with the Catholic Church was the idea that clergy should be celibate, which he felt encouraged the so-called sinful act of masturbation. As he stated, "Nature never lets up. We are all driven to the secret sin. To say it crudely but honestly, if it doesn't go into a woman, it goes into your shirt." So I really hope you liked that video. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up below, and don't forget to subscribe for brand new videos just like this every day of the week. I'd also like to take this time to thank our patrons on Patreon. If you're interested in making a small and totally voluntary monthly contribution to this channel in order to help us keep producing these daily videos, please do head over to patreon.com/TodayIFoundOut. And it's not just a one-way street. We've got loads of cool rewards for people who support us on Patreon, such as the credit screen that you're about to see. And as always, thank you for watching.